Moving on to long ball number 2 here on Wednesday, April 9th. It came to light yesterday that a little old team called Inter Miami has the discovery rights for a player known globally as KDB. Kevin De Bruyne said last week he is moving on from Manchester City, which led to speculation of where he would go. There was thoughts he might go to San Diego, and San Diego said not interested. So then who has the discovery rights? And it comes to pass that Inter Miami has rights to Kevin De Bruyne. So with the already stacked lineup down in South Beach, it leads the question, if this comes to pass, if Kevin De Bruyne moves from Manchester City and joins the likes of Messi, Suárez, Busquets, Alba, is this kind of cheating, and is this manipulation beyond the pale for Major League Soccer and its rules and the fluid nature of them?
I've been fascinated by the emotional response to this news from MLS fans, or the small sample of MLS fans that I've been able to connect with and see their thoughts on social media and the like. I mean, I get it. Like, the immediate thing is, oh, this is not fair. How can Inter Miami, who already has this incredible collection of talent, add a player like Kevin De Bruyne, who's one of the most accomplished midfielders of his generation? That doesn't seem right. But what fails to take into account is that Kevin De Bruyne gets to choose. If Kevin De Bruyne wants to sell his services, at least for the time being, for this season, because Inter Miami does not have an open DP slot in 2025, if he wants to sell his services on the cheap, on the future promise of something, who's to say that that's wrong? I guess the idea is like, oh, Miami shouldn't promise him something next year or in order to get him to sign a contract now. But that stuff is done kind of all the time. And honestly, that's a level of trust that maybe I don't know that Kevin De Bruyne should put into Miami. And maybe that's part of this for some people. And I'm sure that the rest of the league's CSOs and general managers and technical directors and sporting directors would be upset to see Miami add a player like that when it seems unfair. But that club has shown ambition, right? They've brought in players who are attractive to play with. Kevin De Bruyne gets to play with Lionel Messi. Maybe he never thought that would happen in his life. And if he says, oh, I'll take a TAM deal to play with Lionel Messi, well, then go get yourself a Lionel Messi so your team is as attractive as Inter Miami so you can bring in players like Kevin De Bruyne on TAM deals. I mean, I don't know. Right? Was it cheating when Zlatan Ibrahimovic signed a TAM deal with the Galaxy when he arrived? Maybe it was. Maybe it feels like cheating, but I'm just not sure that the rules necessarily say it is. Now, the discovery rights thing, that's got people twisted up too, Rob, because it's always been
people forget about those things.
How can you discover a KDB? And remember that this is first right of refusal, first opportunity to negotiate, and it's supposed to level the playing field by giving clubs that are not Miami, that don't have the geographic advantage that Miami has, the opportunity to go after players, and obviously to limit interleague battles for signings, right? What MLS doesn't want is a bidding war for Kevin De Bruyne between multiple MLS teams. What they want to be able to do is say, all right, only one team can negotiate with him. Now, if you want Kevin De Bruyne, you're going to have to trade for his discovery rights, right? This is actually fair, I think. Andrew saying it needs to be renamed. Just call it dibs. Just call it dibs. We all know what that is.
So it's the figurative version of putting a folding chair in the spot that you call dibs on for a player. Like exactly. You just put a folding chair near his house or something.
It probably evokes the wrong image, but call shotgun. I got shotgun. I mean, you got shotgun on Kevin De Bruyne? Fine. You got shotgun on Kevin De Bruyne. Now, I don't remember, so I do kind of remember, but I'm not specific about the details on how this works. I think you get to put 3 names on a list at the beginning of the year or something. And teams have to calculate how likely it is that player will become available. So it's kind of like, well, if I put Kevin De Bruyne on my list, if I'm I'm RSL. Now, RSL would put Kevin De Bruyne's name on a list knowing that the chances that he would sign with them are very, very slim, right? Almost infinitesimal to imagine that Kevin De Bruyne would, after leaving Manchester City, would go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go play in Salt Lake City. That's what I'm going to do. I mean, no offense to Salt Lake City, it's just not the same kind of attraction for a European player that LA, Miami, and maybe New York are. So I just, every team has to take into into account what the chances are they could get the player they're putting on the discovery list to A, maybe sign with them, or B, whether they could trade those rights. And if you're not positive that player is going to become available, why would you put his name on the list? Because then you don't have anything to trade should he decide to look at MLS, right? It only becomes an issue if a player's like, you know what, I'm only going to play for X team in Major League Soccer. And that team doesn't have the rights, and DC United or Columbus or RSL or someplace where he wasn't going to sign goes, well, you have to trade with us and we get some stuff for that. I mean, again, I think it's dumb, but it is the way of MLS and always has been.
I keep on imagining some imaginary guy in a back room, like smoking a cigarette, got his head buried in some accounting books, like, hey, boss, I found this kid. This kid's available. This Kevin De Bruyne. We might be able to get this guy. He looks great.
Do you know about this Kevin De Bruyne guy? He's a really good player, boss. We should take a look at him.
Yeah, our scouting department has all sorts of notes on him. He seems like he might be a good addition. I have a very good friend who is a Columbus Crew supporter, and before the Gazdag news came out, he was trying to spin the yarn that maybe Kevin De Bruyne would be interested in Columbus because he's kind of a low-key, quieter person, and he could be convinced that Columbus, like if you want to come just strictly for the football and not necessarily have all the flash of where you are, like come to Columbus. But clearly that's not working. Up on the screen, Nate getting involved. Oh, that was a quick one. I'm not that fast a reader.
It's there.
Still think San Diego should be included in the list of most desirable MLS cities from a foreign player perspective. Yeah, but putting still in there is hard because, I mean, we're about like a month or two into San Diego being a possibility. But yeah, I mean, San Diego, unreal. I visited San Diego for a long weekend about 10, 15 years ago and still remember it very fondly.
You still want to sign for San Diego FC?
Yeah, sign me. I'll take a low TAM deal, guys.
I'm going to say that. Let me throw in my man Nicholas Murray here. Imagine the size of the fedora on that scout who's like, but that scout wouldn't say, check out this guy, Kevin De Bruyne. He'd be like, do you know about this guy, Kevin De Bruyne? What about Kevin De Bruyne, boss? And he's got the cigar. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Imagination running wild. And it would be funnier knowing that sort of conversations isn't as possible considering the process that went into signing the big names in Toronto. And they did equivalent of that, but on Football Manager. Like, hey, this Insigne guy, he seems like a rootin' tootin' player. We should bring him on over to Canada.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto could be on that list of attractive destinations.
Yeah, I mean, if you know, you know. I mean, it's a global city and people internationally know it, but I don't think that necessarily hits everybody the same.
Absolutely. And obviously they've managed to attract 3 big-name Italian players, which says something about the attraction of the Italian community. There is a very strong Italian presence in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. All right, what else we got?
I guess we can move along from those thoughts on KDB. Throw it in the comments. Do you think that it is cheating to bring him in?
Do you feel like it's cheating? I definitely want to get to that. Like, does this feel like, if it does come to pass, is this somehow an end run around the rules for Miami, who, again, does have his discovery rights? It's not as though they are executing some deal and then, having to trade for those rights. They're the ones that put Kevin De Bruyne's name on their list. I think it's just that mismatch of the talent of Kevin De Bruyne, who's, I should also say, 33 years old, has a ton of miles on his legs, would have to adjust to life in Major League Soccer, which involves travel and surfaces and all of these kind of things that make it tougher. I'm not saying he couldn't succeed, but I do think he would have to be managed. So I'm not sure you're getting 30 games out of Kevin De Bruyne next season if you sign him, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to get that kind of output. So he will be not a part-time player, but a 3/4 part-time player, if you know what I'm saying, more than likely. And injuries are always a likelihood for a player at that age range. So, keep in mind, if you feel like, oh, this is wrong, Inter Miami adding this talent to Suárez and Messi and Alba and Busquets, and remember that Kevin De Bruyne is not exactly the player he was a couple years ago, and his value is commensurate to what he will be able to deliver. He's got a name, right? But Miami doesn't need Kevin De Bruyne's name to sell tickets. They've already got the most famous player on the planet. So for them, it's about maybe winning things. And if he is saying, I'll come and live in Miami and do it for $1.5 million, Again, more power to them. We should want Major League Soccer clubs to be creative this way, to find ways to bring in the talent to push the league forward. We want ambitious clubs. I don't like this idea that we're supposed to punish Miami for being ambitious.
I think it's worth noting that a lot of the time when big DP players come from this established level, the key factors in their success is availability and attitude. I mean, if the player's in and out of the lineup all the time, and obviously not having a big impact, and an attitude, are they put in the front for forward? We saw the Insigne level of commitment compared to the Bernadeschi level of commitment on Sunday night. If De Bruyne is engaged and available, you'd think he'd be a success. And before we move on, producer Jenny with a contextual note about the discovery list in general. She's put in the chat here: teams can have up to 5 players on their discovery list. No limitations on when they can be added or removed. So kind of a little bit of background on this discovery list.